Hey everybody, Joshua Hoffert here with Silent Fire. I'm here with
Colin and Nicolle.
He's the parish priest of St. John and St. Mary in Summerside, PEI, and we are in the convent in Summerside. We're with the Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus of Ragusa, and we're here with Sister Marian. We're here with Sister Margherita, and we're here with Sister Karuna, and we're here to have a conversation about what does it look like to experience the life of God. What does it look like to be just different aspects of our faith tradition? My background's charismatic. Colin's background is Anglican, and the sisters are a Catholic convent. And so we just wanted to come together and talk about what it looks like to experience the life of God and hear their stories. The Order of the Sacred Heart of Jesus of Ragusa was founded in the late 1800s. Sister Maria Scanina, she was born to a wealthy family, and she, around the age of 30, she caught a glimpse of the beauty of Jesus in the poor, and she says at one point, she says, let that which fed my vanity now go to feed the poor. And she spent her life feeding the poor, taking care of the people that were disadvantaged, taking care of children, and founded this order in the late 1800s. And so we're just so excited to be able to have this conversation and talk about experiencing the life of God. Colin.
Yeah. Well, sisters, thank you so much for agreeing to do this and to having us here today. I think a lot of people who might listen to our show may sort of think to themselves, it's kind of a big leap to go from being a faithful Catholic, a layperson, to joining a monastic order and committing your life to God in such a way. And so we were wondering if perhaps you could just take a few minutes to tell us each about your journey of how you came to be here and how the call of God kind of came upon you for this vocation.
Yeah, in my family, faith was very important. My mother had an aunt who was a sister and also a cousin who became a priest. As a young child, I was in daycare and the sisters took care of me. And ever since I was young, I wanted to become a sister. But then we moved from Italy, we moved to Ontario, Welland. And there weren't at that time sisters around, so I didn't think anything of it. But in 1956, they opened up the first Catholic school in Welland. And the parish priest encouraged the parents to register the children in the Catholic school, and so we were sent there. And that school was staffed by many sisters. So I came in contact with sisters again. At the same time, they had a lot of books on the lives of the saints. So I started to read the lives of the saints, and I was inspired to love Jesus as they loved him.
Wow.
And I was wondering, what can I do to give my life for Jesus just like the saints did? And then I looked at the sisters and I said, well, the sisters, they work for God. So I guess I could become a sister and offer my life to God and work for him. But I was only a child then, 10 years old. But that idea just kept on growing within me until in 1958, the Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus of Ragusa opened a mission in the city of Welland. And I came in contact with them. And I saw how they lived their life. And I said, that's what I want. And at the age of 15, I asked to be admitted. Of course, they didn't want to accept me because I was too young, but I wrote to the Superior General in Rome asking for her permission, if she would give me the permission. And she saw that I was really sincere about it, and she gave me permission to enter. And so, yes, it was difficult to leave my family, especially my mother. I was so attached to her. But God gave me the grace to do it. And I've been in the convent ever since.
Wow.
And I've been very happy.
You said, when we were talking beforehand, one of the things that you had said, we were talking about joining a monastic order, and you said if if the call is there, essentially the grace will be there.
That's right.
To fulfill that.
Mm-hmm.
And so it sounds like the grace was definitely there for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But we have to respond to that grace.
Right.
Because God could give us the grace, but we could turn a deaf ear to it and not respond to it.
Right. Yeah.
Sisters Karuna or Marian?
Sister Marian.
Yeah.
I came from a very Catholic family, and I'm number 7 of 8 children, and we only have 2 boys, so you can imagine how noisy the household is. We're always singing and whatever we want to do. But both of my parents were really religious, and my grandpa was a sacristan in a church somewhere in a different province. And he was sacristan there until he was 100 years old. So he died at 105, but it rooted from the family. I always want, as far as I can remember, I always want to be a sister. And they would tease me like, you got lots of big sisters, and ooh. And I said, I want to be a sister. So stop it. I would always do that. And when I was a teenager, I was just like a plain teenager, and graduated high school when I was 15. And that happens that my oldest brother became a political prisoner. And my childhood life, which is so innocent and so happy, shattered, just break into pieces. And I started to lament to God, and I asked him, I challenged him, I said, you're a good God, why did you let this happen to us when we go to church all the time, and we're just simple people? And he responded to me in a dream, and in my dream there was a crucifix that was prostrating on the feet of Jesus, crying, and Jesus' right hand exactly touched my shoulder. And I looked up and I saw his face so gentle and merciful, and that then I understood he did not say anything at all, but just by looking at his eyes, he told me, don't worry, I'm here for you. So that was my dream. And I was 15 then, and my mom told me, you probably should do a novena to the Sacred Heart, 9 first Fridays of the month. So I did that. And then I was out of school because my mom had a heart attack, and my mom said, you're just very young to go to university. I was only 15, so maybe you should stay and give her company. And so that's what happened. And from that day on, I went to church every single day, received the Holy Eucharist, and that strengthened my vocation. And at that time, I told my oldest sister, I want to enter, and she said no, because right now our family has been facing these difficult situations where we're being militarily harassed during the time of Marcos, if you know who he is. And since my brother was a political prisoner, he was a labor union, they said that he was the Secretary General in our province. So they call him the Big Fish, which they threatened to kill or torture, but it did not happen. My sister said that, you just call off, finish your education. So I became an elementary school teacher. And after I finished my school, I just stopped for three months as an elementary school teacher. And then I really want to be a sister. But that time my father was dying. But then I was reflecting upon it, and I said to myself, in every time that I would decide to enter, there's always that trials in my life. And I was thinking, if that's the way the devil wants me to be discouraged and just not continue, not to respond to God's call. So I talked to my mom and to my family, and they said, if that's what makes you happy, go. And so 5 months after I was sent to Canada, my father died. So I came in November of 1992. In 1993 of April, my dad died. And so looking back to that, it even strengthened my faith because my mom sent me a letter, the only letter that she ever sent me in my dialect, and she said, no matter what happens, this is before my father died. She knows that I'm so attached because I've never been away from my house. And at that time I was already 24. I've never been away from my family. And she said, no matter what happens to us, don't turn your back because Christ is our life and our joy. And that was the source of my strength. If my parents can do that for me, I can do everything for them, because I know that no matter what happens, they will always support me.
Right.
So, and that from, that's always like, aside from the grace that comes from God, this experience of sacrificial support from my family, always part of my journey.
I just love the distinction between your two, both essentially called at the age of 15, with your dream and then with your seeing the lives of the saints and just going, wow, but so different, but so similar. Catching a glimpse of something beautiful. I love that. Sister Karuna.
Yes, me too. I come from a simple Catholic family, and yes, prayer is very important in my family. From my childhood, I have experienced the prayer life in the family was very important. And I was also inspired to see two of my uncles are Catholic priest and also my grandfather's brother. So we have 3 priests in the families. And as I was saying, the prayer life in our family was very important, and still they continue to pray. I remember every Sunday when we go to church, when we come back, my father will make sure that we are paying attention. And he would ask for the lunch, what was the sermon today? So we had no choice to escape because food is there. So that's how we learn something more about our faith, and we are interested towards our faith or how we can apply. He would ask all the, okay, so you heard this, how can you apply this to your daily life? So that's why it helped me to deepen my faith. And as I also grew up with the sisters in the school, all the way from elementary to high school, I was in the convent school. And even I saw how the sisters were visiting our families and listening to us patiently. Sometimes they would talk to us one by one. And that really, their apostolate in the families inspired me. But my journey towards the institute towards Sacred Heart is something mysterious, because I never knew if there exist the Sisters of the Sacred Heart, because we don't. I'm the first batch of the Sisters of the Sacred Heart in India, with other 2 sisters, and we had no idea. And one thing about the Sacred Heart, maybe from my childhood, it's maybe he wanted me to be in this house or in the family of the Sacred Heart. My father had put a big picture of the Sacred Heart in the parlor, or whenever you go out or come in, my father would make sure that, look at Jesus. Make sure that Jesus is looking at you always. He's following you there always. So that it's not the fear, but the fear of God.
Yeah.
That it remained, and that I was always looking at his eyes is that picture that always following me wherever I am. And I don't know. Yes, I believe for sure he was putting something in my heart, or he wants me. And in 2000, one of the priests who was studying here in Canada, he frequented some courses here. So he came to encounter our sisters. I don't know very well the story or how it happened, what they had talked about. And he goes back to India, and he says that Sisters of the Sacred Heart, they want to extend their mission in India. So at the time I was in high school, and I heard about this, and I thought I will try. But I was already thinking that I will be a nun.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yes, when the priest starts with small group of girls to start this congregation without the sisters, but maybe it was the Sacred Heart of Jesus that he was calling me, without knowing who are these sisters, what's the spirituality, what they do. I didn't know anything, but just I decided I want to be there. And of course, it was not easy to convince. Yes, my family was supportive, but those were authorities from the parish. They told me, you don't know who are these sisters.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I will try. I will come to know them. And then, of course, they gave me the permission. And I discovered the spirituality and the family of the Sacred Heart. And now I'm here.
Right. Wonderful. Yeah. I think one thing I hear, in your stories is the centrality of prayer, of even just when you're young and growing up. And I wonder, we're all called as Christians to pray and to have that faith, but what could you speak, having this experience that many people don't have, of what is it about the monastic vocation to, this consecrated life, and the spirituality of it, that is sort of, what's so unique about it, and what does the world kind of need from that, because I do think that, monastic orders are very much needed, in the world, and it's an encouraging thing to know that people, consecrate their lives in such a way to God. But what do you think is about that kind of spirituality that's so important and necessary?
Well, as Sisters of the Sacred Heart, our spirituality is love and reparation to the Sacred Heart. Mm-hmm. And this spirituality has its roots in the heart of Christ that was pierced on the cross. And we see Jesus giving his all to us. So we talk a lot about love today, but in most cases, the love that people talk about is sensual love that gives pleasure. It's a self-seeking love. Whereas Jesus, if you look at him on the cross with his heart pierced, he's saying to us, love is sacrificial. Love is self-giving. The more you give of yourself, the more you love. And this is one of the important things that people have to realize today. That if we're going to love, we have to love with our total being, with our whole being, with a sacrificial love, a love that is able to sacrifice itself for the beloved. And this is something that we drastically need in our world today. Because if we have this type of love, then there wouldn't be such a thing as racism. Because we love each other as children of the one Father, God. And no matter what nationality or what country you're from, you could still live as a family. We're from Philippines, India, Italy, but it doesn't make any difference. We're Sisters of the Sacred Heart. We're one family, and we're all children of God.
Yeah. You're looking at the website, the about the Sisters of the Sacred Heart, that really revolves around that, like you'd said, reparation to the Sacred Heart of Jesus.
That's right.
And then you connected, just for our listeners too, and the people that are watching, and those that haven't been raised in the Catholic tradition, the term Sacred Heart is, and you'd mentioned that self-giving heart of Jesus being pierced on the cross. Is that when you say Sacred Heart, are you directly?
Exactly. It's the image of the heart of Christ who was pierced for love of us. And so it's centered on that.
Yeah. Wow.
Would you like that?
Okay, and I just want to add that nowadays, when a person loves, they call it love when they expect something in return. But Jesus is not like that. He gives us the love which is limitless and not inside a box. No, even as we sinners, we doubted God's love, and sometimes you hear people saying, "Can God really forgive me?" Or if I confess, can I receive pardon for my offenses? And this is the kind of love that we have now in the world. We doubted even the love of God. And, as Sister Margherita said, He died on the cross for us. What greater love could that be than to lay down your life for your friend? And we're not still children of God at that time. And already Jesus did not abandon us, and He gave us His life, His entire life. And this is something that really urges me to be a sister of the Sacred Heart, is the reality and my belief that it is in the heart of Jesus that everything started. The plan of salvation. It really started with love. Because if God did not love us, He wouldn't, take our human form, suffer and be persecuted by His creation.
Yeah.
So that is love for me. It's so huge. It's unbounded. It's limitless, and people ought to understand that there is no such thing as unforgiving God.
So, Sister Marian, when you were telling us your story, how much I've noticed in studying some of the saints and some of the significant figures in Christian history that oftentimes that initial call was through a dramatic dream or a vision, something like what you had. And just on that topic of love, that vision that you had where you saw Jesus and the tenderness in His eyes, how much has that vision and that imagery from that dream just dictated and guided you in your life when it comes to love and giving of yourself?
It's just so beautiful, because His head was crowned with thorns, and He was so bleeding, and His face was though gentle and merciful. It's kind of deformed, and you can see if a person can love that way, then that is real love. And I think that embracing a religious life is also dying to yourself. And I'm just pondering about it, that there's a connection between God's dying on the cross and a person not greater than all. We're just ordinary people called by God, and we die to ourselves in order to start a new life as a religious. Because we do, like most of us, we change our names. Significant. It's optional, but she did. Sister Margherita changed her name. I changed my name, and for us, it has a meaning. The dying to the world and embracing the life in God. So the image is always constantly, don't complain, Sister Marian. You know what I did for you.
Right.
It's always there's always the correlation between my call and that figure that I see in my dream.
Right. It almost like grounds you in what your spirituality looks like. Is if I can just model this.
Yes.
I love that. So beautiful. Yeah.
For me, I remember that we have also, as Sister Margherita said, love and reparation is the core of our spirituality. And also there's another motto, let's love the love which is not loved. So who is love? we can give a definition of God is love. And now in the world, this love is scattered. We don't know what's the meaning or what's the real love.
Yeah.
So how can we know God if we don't know what is love? So there is love, the spirituality of love, and through this love, how we instrumentalize towards through our work is through our apostolate. We may be talking later. Not just keeping to ourselves, but sharing it towards others. And in our ordinary life or family life or wherever we find, first of all, we have to share this love in our families, with our children, or beside me with my co-sisters or whomever I meet in my daily life. Not doing big things, but just by giving a smile or a good words, or whatever little ways I can give God's love.
And that kind of is a great segue into my next question, which is, we realize that on the website it talks about, the Sisters of the Sacred Heart and commitment to the poor. And I know that, I don't know much about your work in that department, but I've certainly seen you all at the hospital visiting people relentlessly. As I said to Josh, I'll go in and I'll put down, I went in and visited 2 people, and one of you will have just left and you visited 15 people or 20 people and that kind of thing. And so I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about, your order and this commitment to showing love to, especially to the poor and to those in need.
When Mother Skinina began the work, the first thing that she did was to bring the elderly that she had been visiting for years into the community in order to take care of them. And then she brought in the children who were abandoned on the streets, who had no one to take care of them. The elderly needed nursing, so she made sure that sisters got some training in nursing. The children needed teaching, so she made sure that the sisters would be able to teach the children. So one work led to the other. But in speaking about the poor, we have to remember that the poor are not only the destitute, those who need money or housing, but the elderly who are abandoned, who need love and affection and understanding. Children who may be from a broken home, who need so much understanding and so much love on the part of the teacher. And that's why it's very important for a sister to have an open heart, open ears, to be able to see the needs of the people that she encounters, and to be able to give them that love that they so drastically need. And it's communicating this love, because when the children, the elderly, feel that they're loved, then they experience joy.
Is there anything that you would say out of your kind of wisdom and your experiences as nuns and as people who live this monastic life, any word that you would have for the world at this time? We're in such a very strange time in the world, both with the pandemic that's been going on. I'm thinking, as you're saying, Sister Margherita, of people who are elderly, who are alone and feeling abandoned. I mean, I know that there's a lot of people out there because of this pandemic that not just elderly people, but all kinds of people who feel isolated and alone, and people who are in hospital with no one able to visit them, at least earlier on. Is there anything that you sisters would have to say to the world, a word just of anything, that you think the world needs to hear at this time?
Well, one thing that I would say is try to become less self-centered. Don't think too much about yourself. Try to think about the needs of others. And you will find that in getting out of yourself and thinking of the others, you will experience true joy and peace. That's an experience that I've had.
I was a youth coordinator before I enter in our big parish. We have 600 more than 600 active youth in the parish.
Wow.
And we always have these seminars for the youth. And, you know, the majority of them think that to establish a relationship with God is a complicated matter. But God really just, what God wants of us is to be who we are. Who we are.
Yeah.
And He's calling us to be simple, like a child. In the scripture, Jesus said, you know, if you can be like this little child, you can enter the kingdom of God. This is what God wants us to hear right now, this moment of time where there are so many trials. We are tried with, in other countries, persecutions, you know, social classes, and you know, we're tried with this sickness, the pandemic all over the world, and each government treated their people differently. Some with love, and some with really, really care, and some they don't care. But my message is go to God. This is one way of, like, every time we have a pandemic, if you read the scripture from the Old to the New Testament, God speaks to us through whatever comes in our way, in our face. And go to God and pray. This is the time to realize that we can't do it without God. You know, out on the TV they say, let's get together to beat this pandemic, but we can't beat the pandemic without God's grace. So this is my message to all the people, that please, you know, be truthful to yourself, be simple, because God just wants us to be His child, and He wants us to be true to ourselves and true to Him.
My simple message at this crucial time is to be united, come as a family together, understand each other and care for each other. And that's where you will find real love, which is God. And the life will, whatever challenges it will come, you will face together. And you'll also experience love of God in your family, through your neighbors, and you can overcome this critical moment.
I wanted to ask about, across the hall from us in the room we're in right now, there is a chapel.
Yes.
And I just wanted to ask about the centrality of the Eucharist to your spirituality in particular, you know, as living here in the convent.
The Eucharist is the central and focal point of our life. It is, we believe that Jesus is truly present in body, blood, soul, and divinity. Jesus feeds and nourishes us through the Eucharist, because He said, take and eat, this is my body. Take and drink, this is my blood. And it is in the Eucharist that we receive the strength, the enlightenment, the courage to go out and minister, carry out our work the way that God wants us to carry it out. And so we begin our day of prayer in the chapel with the morning prayers, with morning meditation for half hour, silent prayer, and the celebration of Holy Mass in the morning. We also have prayers in the afternoon. In the evening, we have evening prayers, the Rosary, which is a prayer to Our Lady, evening prayers, and silent meditation again. And then before we go to bed, again in the chapel before the Blessed Sacrament, the recitation of night prayers. So our day revolves around the Eucharist.
And I was going to add to that, the Eucharist is the center of our consecrated life. It's because God in the Holy Eucharist gave Himself to us, humbly gave Himself to us. And so following His example, receiving Him and Him become part of us, we ought to give ourselves to other people without limit.
So you could say, you know, just wrapping up what you guys had said, the don't think of yourself, think of others more. Yours become come to God. It's simple.
Mhm.
And be united as a family and come to God.
That's right.
All of those things are centered in the life of Christ
Exactly.
through the Eucharist,
Through the Eucharist.
coming in, and you can't even accomplish those things without being part of that.
No, we can't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful.
It is his life. It's like
And
we said,
Jesus said, without me you can do nothing.
Yeah.
And he turned it the other way, with me you can do all things.
Yeah,
So,
that's right.
Well, thank you all for this time. It's been really, really a blessing to be able to hear from you and spend the time with you. As we say goodbye to our viewers, I did want to, I think Josh told me that you're part of what you do here as well is childcare, daycare.
yes.
And did I hear right that you're fundraising for an expansion or an extension?
Well, we haven't started the fundraising, but we were thinking about it.
Okay. Well, I'm sure there's daily costs as well and that sort of thing. So we just encourage you. We want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we just want to encourage you if you want to support the work of the Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus of Ragusa here in Summerside. I'm sure you can just look them up online, and they're
We'll have somewhere around here. There'll be a link
that'll
Yes.
appear on the video.
and in the video description too. You'll be able to find a link to find out more about them and to find out ways to support them as well.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So we want to thank you for watching, and we want to thank Sisters. Oh my gosh,
Marian,
Margherita, and Karuna for
Absolutely,
taking this time this afternoon for us. Thank you all, and
Yeah.
God bless you, and we'll see you soon.
Until
Thank
next
you.
time.
Thank
Yeah.
you. You're
That's
welcome.
right.
God bless.